We humans are the creatures of habits, and those habits can be the difference between success and a failure.
Most behavior is habitual, and they say the chains of habit are too light to be felt until they're too heavy to be broken.
6 habits of very wealthy people.
The keys to a productive life can be found in science.
Take a look at any successful person you admire. You might be surprised to learn that their success is not merely about their talent, it is about the habits they have built over time.
When my brother and I were starting our first company, instead of getting an apartment, we just rented a small office and we slept on the couch. We had just one computer, so the website was up during the day and I was coding at night. 7 days a week, all the time.
Habits aren't born overnight. They start with small actions that we repeat until they become automatic, aka the phenomena of atomicity.
I'm going to ask you to think sufficiently small, because I have learned that the secret to accomplishing every big goal is to simply do something small.
There is a myth that achieving huge success requires taking massive actions, but in reality, it is the small steps that add up. Here is the simple idea. If you get just 1% better each day for a year, you will be 37% better at the end. On the other hand, if you just get 1% worse each day, you will end up at zeros. This shows how much habits matter in our lives. This is what James Clear talked about in his book, The Atomic Habits. In this video, we are going to talk about how 1% change can change the whole trajectory of your life. There are 3 main parts of atomic habits that we are going to talk about. The first part is about why our good habits always lag behind the bad ones, and how habits shape who we are. The first and the most common challenge we face while developing good habits is that we try to change the results rather than changing the path we are on, also referred to as identity-based habits. Imagine you want to get healthier, so you start going to the gym. But after a few days, you don't see much change in your body, and it is discouraging. You might quit if you don't see fast results. These are the goals-based habits where you are chasing outcomes. But guess what? In reality, results never come too quickly. Every result has a threshold at which changes start to happen, but until then it might feel like nothing is happening, and here we get frustrated and revert to our old habits.
This is not working at all.
The author referred to this as plateau of latent potential, aka the value of disappointment. Think of it like searching for a buried treasure. You have been digging for a while, but it looks like you are not getting anywhere. But suddenly, with a tiny bit more digging, you strike gold. Habits work that way too. They seem slow at first, but a tiny bit more extra effort can lead to significant results. We think our hard work was a waste of time, but actually it is not wasted. You just not have reached your threshold. So what we should do in this situation? How we can overcome this valley of disappointment? The best way to get through is to focus on systems, not goals. Usually we go through life by setting goals. We set the goals for the grades we want to get in school and the money we want to make in business. But you will notice that most of the time we fail at them. Goals are only good for showing us where we want to go. Here are 4 reasons why we should focus less on our goals. The first reason is that winners and losers often have the same goals. Every Olympian wants the gold medal, and every job applicant wants the job. And goals cannot be the reason that separates winners from the losers. What sets them apart is their systems and small improvements they make. The second reason is that goals have only momentary changes like a burst of energy. Goals provide a momentary change that fades away once you hit the finish line. For example, if your goal is to lose 20 pounds, once you have lost it, the motivation to exercise might vanish and you might gain those pounds back. The third reason is that goals can restrict your happiness. When I make a certain amount of money, or once I will lose 20 pounds, then I will be happy. Goals box your happiness to a certain period. On the other hand, when we set on the journey of self-improvement and try new things, we do not have to wait for the happiness to happen. We find it along the way rather than just at the finish line. As the author said, it makes no sense to restrict your happiness when there are many paths.
Yesterday is history. Tomorrow is a mystery, but today is a gift. That is why it is called the present.
The fourth reason is that goals often conflict with the long-term progress. Many people go back to their old habits once they reach the goal. For example, runners train hard for months, but as soon as they hit the finish line, they stop training because the motivation is not there anymore to keep them on the track. The second challenge we face while developing good habits is the way we try to change our habits. We either try to change the wrong thing or we try to change the habit in the wrong way. There are 3 layers of habit in which change can occur. The first and the outermost layer is the outcome layer. The outcome layer is about what you get, like losing 20 pounds. The middle layer is the process layer. Process layer is about what you do, like exercising regularly, which leads to the desired outcome. The last and the most important layer is the identity layer. Identity layer is about what you believe. Like, I am the type of person who prioritizes health and exercise regularly, which leads to the process. As we have discussed before, we only focus on goals-based habits. Goals-based habits start from the outcome layer and focus on the end result, like losing 20 pounds. These are the goals-based habits. The author suggested that we should focus on the identity-based habits. Identity-based habits start from the identity layer and focus on the type of person who values this or who is this. Like, I am the type of person who prioritizes health and exercise regularly. This shift in identity leads to a series of consistent small steps, like regular exercise and healthier eating, which ultimately lead to the desired outcome. But be cautious when trying to alter your identity, as it can be as tricky as holding double-edged sword. So here is the correct way to change your identity. Decide the type of person you want to become, then prove it to yourself with small wins. Now let's deep dive into the part 2, which is about understanding the science of habit loop and the 4 key components behind every habit. Human behavior has a feedback loop of try, fail, learn and try differently. Imagine you are trying to solve a tricky problem, but you have no idea where to start. You give it a shot, but it doesn't work out for the first time. This is a try and fail part. Now you decide to do some research and figure out how to solve the problem. After a bunch of reading and experimenting, you finally find the answer. That is the learn part. The cool thing is that the next time you come across a similar problem, you already know what to do. You skip the trial and error and go straight to the solution. That is the try differently part. So it is like a cycle. Try, fail, learn and try differently. It is how we humans keep getting better at stuff by learning from our mistakes. By doing so, your brain creates a mental rule of if this then that. Similarly, our brain has a way of making our habits automatic, aka the phenomena of atomicity. Once a habit becomes a regular thing for you, you no longer have to work hard to do it again. Your brain tells you automatically when this happens, it is time for that habit. Habits formed based on how often we repeat them, not how long it takes. Instead of asking how much time it will require to build a habit, we should focus on consistent practice. There are 4 key components of every habit that come together to form a habit loop, making it something you do without even thinking about it. These components are cue, craving, response, and reward. Cue is the trigger or a signal that prompts your brain to start the habit. It is the starting point of every habit. It is a bit of information that predicts where the reward is located. For example, the smell of coffee in the morning might trigger your brain to start the habit of drinking coffee. Cue leads to the 7th component of the habit loop, which is the cravings. Craving is the difference between your current state and your desired state. It is a desire that arises in response to a cue, compelling you to take action, much like wanting a first sip of coffee in the morning. It triggers the molecule called dopamine, which plays a role in seeking pleasure, but it also plays a huge role in our learning and motivation. Craving leads to the 3rd component of the habit loop, which is the response. Response is the action or behavior you take in response to the cravings, such as brewing a cup of coffee. It then leads to the last component of the habit loop, which is the reward. Here your brain decides whether you want to repeat this habit or not. Rewards serve 2 purposes. They either satisfy you or they teach you. Reward is the satisfaction or a pleasure you experience as a result of the response, much like enjoying the taste and energy from the coffee. By understanding these 4 key components, we can now witness these components as a base for the 4 laws of behavior change. So let's deep dive into the part 3, which is about understanding the 4 laws of behavior change for building good habits and breaking bad ones. Now think of these laws as levers on each component. Each law acts as a lever to pull in the good habits and push back the bad ones simultaneously. These laws are not only effective but also incredibly simple to put into practice. So let's understand how they can help us in building good habits and breaking bad ones. The first law of behavior change: make it obvious. This law is about making the cues, or in simple terms, the trigger of your desired behavior obvious to start the good habit. Obvious cues has 4 key components. The first component is the awareness of your habit. If you want to change your habit, you first need to be aware of your habits. As we know from the habit loop, our actions get into the state of atomicity in our unconscious mind when we repeat them. So this makes habits useful but also very dangerous. For example, you might have the habit of biting your fingernails. You might do it without even realizing it. You might not notice until someone points them out to you. That is why awareness of your habits is very important, because it brings your unconscious habits to a more conscious level. So here is a 2-step process for creating awareness. The first step uses the pointing and calling method. This technique originated in Japan and has been widely adopted in many industries for safety and efficiency purposes. It involves verbally stating or physically pointing at an action or object while performing it. Imagine you want to change the behavior of mindlessly eating on unhealthy food while watching TV. To use the pointing and calling method here, you need to say out loud and be Be aware of what you are doing. Here is how it is done. Point as you reach for the bag of chips. Physically point at it and say out loud, I am reaching for the bag of chips. Next is calling. Vocalize your intentions and actions, saying something like, I am snacking on chips while watching TV. By explicitly pointing at the chips and vocalizing your actions, you bring them into your unconscious mind. The second step is to create your habit scorecard. A habit scorecard is the process of documenting your habits in a clear and organized manner. Here is how you can craft your habit scorecard. Make a list of everything you do in each day, from the moment you wake up until bedtime. Look at each behavior and decide if it is good, bad, or a neutral habit. Use a plus sign for good habits, negative sign for bad habits, and equal sign for neutral habits. And then question yourself, does each habit move me closer to the type of person I want to become? With enough practice, your brain picks up on these cues and creates awareness around your behavior. The second component for obvious cues involves implementation intention. Implementation intention is the concept of pairing your current habit with time and location. Cues are either time-based or location-based. Implementation intention uses both of these. Here is how you can use implementation intention. I will habit at time in location. For example, instead of saying when I have a free time, I will read a book, you can say I will read a book at 6 a.m. in my backyard. By doing this, you explicitly define the exact time and location for when and where you are going to perform this habit. The third component involves habit stacking method. Just as implementation intention pairs the time and location, habit stacking method uses the concept of pairing your current habit that you do each day with a new habit. For example, after your current habit, I will perform your new habit. For example, after I read a book, I will meditate for 1 minute. This act of pairing creates a chaining effect. Each act as a trigger for the next cue and creates a road effect. The last component is to leverage your environment. Our habit change depending upon the environment we are in and the cues in front of us. When the cues that spark the habit are hidden, they are easy to ignore. Our behavior is the function of a person in their environment. For example, here B represents your actions or habits, P represents your personal characteristics, and E signifies your environment. Let's see this in action with everyday scenario. Imagine you are a student preparing for a crucial exam. Your personal characteristics include knowledge, skills, and determination to succeed. Consider two different environments you might find yourself in. First scenario includes a cluttered, noisy room with distractions like your phone and TV. In this environment, it is challenging to focus. It is not conducive for learning. Your behavior may involve procrastination, scrolling through your phone or watching TV instead of studying. On the other hand, the second scenario includes quiet, well-organized space with all your study materials neatly laid out. Here, your environment is optimized for learning. Your behavior is more likely to involve productive studying, deep concentration, and effective learning. As you can see, your behavior in both cases is the direct result of the interplay between your personal characteristics and your environment. By shaping your environment to support your goals, you can significantly influence your behavior for the better. For instance, you should use specific places for specific activities, like kitchen for eating, office for working, and the table in your room for only studying. The key takeaway here is that we should use one space for one use only. By doing this, you can build a relationship with your environment. Similarly, if you want to break the bad habits, remove the cue of your bad habits from your environment. As we know, cues are the trigger to start the habit. If the cues are hidden, the habit will never start. For instance, if you are trying to avoid unhealthy food like cookies, instead of leaving the cookie bowl on the kitchen, consider hiding them in a spot that is not easily accessible. The second law of behavior change: make it attractive. This law is about making your habits attractive. The more appealing something is, the more likely it is to become a habit, because we like the things that are attractive to us. Our world today is filled with all sorts of attractions. Think about social media. It is a bottomless pit designed to keep us scrolling for hours because it is attractive. The world our ancestors lived in and the world we are now living in is vastly different in terms of attractions. So what has changed? It is the cravings. In our quest to understand the second law of behavior change, let's understand what are cravings, desires, and dopamine, and how they influence our behavior. Craving is the driving force behind our habits. It is the desire, the gap between where you are and where you want to be. But it is not just about that you want to experience pleasure. Deep down, our cravings are rooted in underlying motives that drive our behavior. For instance, you want to transform your internal state to feel different. Our brain did not evolve to play video games or check Instagram. At a deeper level, what we want is to get admiration or reduce anxiety or uncertainty. Dopamine, on the other hand, is the driving force behind our cravings. It is the hormone in our body that releases whenever you experience a hit of pleasure or when you predict that an opportunity will be rewarding. It spikes to the rooftop, whether it is biting into your favorite dessert or achieving a small goal. It is like a rewarding signal that tells your brain, oh, this feels good, let's do it again. It is the fuel for our learning, motivation, and seeking pleasure. Many experiments reveal that if we block this hormone, we will lose our ability to think and understand. As the author described, without dopamine, our desires fades, and when our desires fades, so does our motivation to take action. That is why dopamine is very crucial. It does not just contribute to seeking pleasure, but also plays a vital role in our learning and motivation. Here is the fascinating part. Dopamine not only spikes when you experience it, but also when you anticipate it. It is not just about getting the reward itself, but also the excitement of knowing that it is coming. In simple terms, it is the wanting part that is more appealing, not the liking part. For instance, consider Christmas. Children often feel the greatest joy not when they unwrap their presents, but when they are filled with anticipation, imagining the delight hidden inside those colorful packages. That is why the promise of something can often be more appealing than the experience itself. So to build habits, we need to make our good habits as attractive as possible. Here are 4 methods to help you do just that. The first method is the temptation building method. Think of temptation building as combining something you want to do with something you need to do. For example, if you want to exercise more, make it attractive by pairing it with something enjoyable like listening to your favorite music or podcast during workout. The second method involves the influence of your desired culture. We humans are the social creatures, also referred as herd animals. This means that we don't always consciously choose our habits. We tend to imitate them. We follow the habits of our culture with little thought, memory, or questioning. Consider the widespread habit of daily beverage consumption. In many cultures, especially in Western societies, it is common to start the day with a cup of coffee. On the other hand, in many cultures, such as Asian culture, tea is the preferred choice to kickstart the day. We tend to adopt the habits that are praised and approved by our culture because we have a strong desire to fit in and belong to the tribe. There are 3 types of groups we tend to imitate in our culture: the close ones, the many people, and the respected folks. The close ones include our friends and family members. We often copy their habits like the way they eat or dress. The many people include our large community, like our neighbors and folks in our hometown. When we are not sure what to do, we look at what they are doing and follow along. The respected folks are those people who have a lot of respect and admiration in our culture. We may want to be like them and have the same status, so we try to do the things the way they do. The key takeaway of this method is that follow the habits of those you desire to become. For example, if you want to get healthy, surround yourself with the fit people. Here is what I mean. Join the culture where your desired behavior seems normal and you have already something in common with the group. If the behavior can get us respect, approval, and praise by our culture, we find it attractive. The third method is the association method. Habits are all about associations. Associations predict whether we want the habit to be worth repeating or not. Habits are attractive when we associate them with the positive feelings. All you need is a slight mind shift. We often talk about our habits as things we have to do, like I have to exercise or I have to wake up early. Instead, change I have to get to, like I get to exercise, I get to wake up early. This simple change makes your responsibilities feel like opportunities. On the other hand, to break bad habits, you can associate them with the negative feelings to make them less appealing. The fourth method is actually not a method but rather a motivational ritual. Create a motivational ritual around your behavior. It is about doing something you enjoy before doing a hard task. For example, playing a piano or guitar before going to the study. The third law of behavior change: make it easy. This law is about making your habits as easy as possible because every action needs a certain amount of energy, and energy is very precious to our brain because our brain is evolved to naturally conserve it by minimizing the effort whenever possible. Consider this: you aim to achieve the lean physique. You have 2 options. One option is to take the fat burning pills for a quick fix, while option 2 requires you to do 100 push-ups. The brain tends to lean toward the first option because it seeks to conserve the energy. 100 push-ups appear daunting, so it is avoided. This tendency is why mindlessly scrolling through social media feels effortless, because they demand minimal energy. So the first method to make your habits easier follows the law of least effort. The law of least effort says that the more energy a habit required, the less likely it is to occur. On the other hand, a habit requiring less energy are more likely to become a routine. Instead of attempting to do 100 push-ups, just start with a 1. Since it is a low energy task, you are more likely to do it even when you lack the motivation. because every habit is just an obstacle to get started. The second method is to reduce friction between you and your desired behavior. If the habit is tough and requires a lot of energy, it creates a friction between you and your ultimate goal. The key is to reduce friction as much as possible. One way to reduce friction is to prime your environment for future actions. For instance, if your goal is to eat a healthy breakfast every morning, organize all the ingredients near your stove the night before. This way, when you wake up, everything will be ready to get cooked. This simple adjustment makes the habit of eating breakfast more convenient and easy to stick with. As the author said, habits are easy to follow when they fit into the flow of your daily life. By eliminating the obstacles that drain your time and energy, you can achieve more with less. The second way to reduce friction is by using the 2-minute rule. The logic behind the 2-minute rule is that you should make any habit that you want to build so simple and effective that it can be done in just 2 minutes or less. The idea is to break your desired behavior into its smallest possible components and start with something that requires a minimal amount of effort and energy. By doing this, you lower the barrier to entry and make it more likely that you will actually start and stick with the habit. Here is an example to illustrate the 2-minute rule. Imagine you want to establish the habit of daily exercise. Instead of setting the goal like I will work out for an hour every day, which can be daunting, you start with a habit like I will put on my workout shoes and do 1 push-up, or I will walk for 2 minutes. These actions can be done in 2 minutes or less and are very easy to achieve. The idea is to make it so simple that you can't say no. Once you have started, you often find that it is easier to continue with a larger task. For example, once you have put on your workout shoes and do 1 push-up, you might feel motivated to do full workout. The key is to establish a consistent routine by starting with a tiny manageable actions. Over time, you can increase the complexity and duration of the habit as it becomes more ingrained in your daily routine. The 2-minute rule is an effective way to beat procrastination and build new habits by focusing on small, achievable actions. Fourth law of behavior change: make it satisfying. This law is all about making the results of your desired behavior as enjoyable as possible. Because our brain evolved for immediate rewards over delayed ones, as the cardinal rule of behavior change says, what is immediately awarded is repeated, and what is immediately punished is avoided. Think of it like this: in the old days, our ancestors lived in immediate return environment where they could only see the results of their actions right away. Like when they found the food, they go to eat immediately. However, nowadays our world works differently. Our society has evolved a lot in the past few decades. We are living in a delayed return environment where the consequences of our actions often take time to show results. For example, if you do a great job at work, you won't see a paycheck for a few weeks. Aside from these changes, human nature hasn't been changed much. We still crave instant gratification. We value present more than the future, and these preferences cause many of our problems. When it comes to bad habits, they offer instant pleasure in the moment, but brings bad outcomes in the future. Take smoking for instance. It eases your stress right away, but it could harm your life in the long run. On the flip side, good habits may not feel great in the moment. Consider exercise. It can be tough initially and results take time to appear. However, long-term benefits are worth it. The key takeaway here is that the more immediate pleasure you get from an action, the more likely it is to become a habit. Now, even though good habits often take time to show their results, we can still teach our brain to wait for the good stuff. But how? Simply by treating ourselves to a small, enjoyable moment right after doing the habit. This is what author calls as immediate reinforcement. It is like giving yourself a reward for your good habits, especially when you are just getting started. In the beginning, we all need a reason to stay on the track. By giving yourself a reward early on, you are telling yourself that your efforts are worth it and that they will pay off in the long run. So how can you reward yourself in a way that really works over time? One approach is to flip the situation around. Here is what I mean. Let's say you are trying to build the habit of saving money and you are cutting down on spending, perhaps that Netflix subscription. Well, one way to give yourself immediate reward is by labeling your savings account with something you value, like saving money for the jacket that you have been wanting. When you save with a specific goal in mind, it is motivating because you are putting money aside for something you genuinely want. Another effective method for immediate reinforcement is to make your habits visually progressing. This means tracking your progress in a way that allows you to see how much you have come. For instance, if you are trying to save money, create a chart that shows your savings growing over time. This visual representation can be satisfying and motivating. Another method is to create the signal of success. This could be as simple as giving yourself a high five after completing the task.
Come on, baby! Come on! Yes! Come on! Ah!
Or using checklists to mark off the completed tasks.
I love checklists.
These signals reinforces the feeling of success and make the habit more satisfying. In a nutshell, building and breaking habits is a powerful force. These laws of behavior change, making it obvious, attractive, easy and satisfying, can be your guiding principles to transform your life. As we have seen, our habits start with the small actions, and it is the daily choices we made that define our destiny. Every action we take is like a tiny building block, gradually forming our life we lead. Remember that even 1% improvement can lead to significant changes over time. So think of your habits as tools that shape your future. Use the power of cue, craving, response, and reward to your advantage, and master the art of building good habits while breaking bad ones. If you found this video helpful, please hitting the like and subscribe button for more insightful content. Your feedback is very valuable, so feel free to leave a comment. And if you think we missed any points or if you have any questions, your engagement helps us grow and improve our videos. Thank you for watching the video, and I will see you in the next video.